Exactly 6 p.m. on May 5, 2025, the lead pilot felt his F-15 India Ram shudder as 58,000 pounds of thrust kicked him in the back that evening. 20 Israeli ROMs were thundering off the runway at Hatsarim Air Base as they climbed toward 35,000 feet. Their target, a Houthi-controlled port in Yemen. For those ground crew watching, little did they know they were witnessing what was about to become the longest-range combat operation in Israeli Air Force history. His F-15 India was loaded with 4 GBU-31 JDAMs, 2,000-pound bunker busters designed to turn reinforced concrete into dust. His wingmen carried GBU-32s, the 1,000-pound smaller cousin. Behind them, 18 other ROMs carried similar loadouts, each pilot knowing they were pushing their aircraft to the absolute edge of operational limits. The F-15 India ROM's conformal fuel tanks, you see, along the fuselage hold an extra 845 gallons of JP-8, extending the aircraft's combat radius from 500 miles to 1,000 miles. With external fuel tanks and air-to-air refueling, they could strike targets 1,250 miles away and still make it home in time for breakfast. As the 20-ship formation climbed through 25,000 feet, the lead pilot's Israeli-built GPS inertial navigation system was calculating the route to Yemen with precision accuracy to within 10 feet, even if the enemy jammed GPS signals. Flying from secure bases deep inside Israel rather than exposed forward positions meant the Houthis would have absolutely no warning until the first bombs started falling. At 6:15 p.m., the lead pilot leveled off at cruising altitude and turned southwest toward the Red Sea. Ahead lay 1,250 miles of hostile airspace, a complex mid-air refueling operation, and targets that the Houthis assumed were safely beyond Israeli reach. But there was a problem. Even with those massive conformal fuel tanks, the F-15s were carrying so much ordnance and flying so far that they'd run out of gas somewhere over the Red Sea without successful refueling. In about 90 minutes, 20 of Israel's most advanced fighters would become artificial reefs. At 7:30 p.m., the lead pilot was staring at fuel gauges that showed exactly what his mission planner had calculated, but those calculations assumed everything would go perfectly. 1 hour and 30 minutes after takeoff, his F-15I was burning fuel at the predicted rate with zero margin for error. If they didn't spot their tankers within the next few minutes, they'd have to turn around and return to base with their wings still dirty, and honestly, no one wanted that. Just as the flight lead was about to make the call, dead ahead, 4 KC-707 tankers were holding position at 35,000 feet, their boom operators preparing for the most challenging refueling operation they'd ever attempted. Each F-15I needed exactly 4,000 pounds of fuel to reach Yemen, deliver its bombs, and return to Israeli airspace. They didn't have a second to lose. The KC-707's rigid refueling boom, you see, extending from the aircraft's tail, can pump 1,000 gallons per minute fast enough to top off multiple fighters without wasting time over hostile territory. Each tanker carries 30,000 gallons of transferable fuel and can stay on station for 6 hours, but this mission required it to be a bit quicker than that. After commencing his approach, the lead pilot called in as he eased his now 70,000-pound fighter into formation behind the lead tanker. Both aircraft were traveling at 300 knots while maintaining formation precise enough for brain surgery. The KC-707's boom operator, lying flat in the tanker's tail section, guided a rigid steel tube toward the lead pilot's fuel receptacle using hydraulic controls that provided precise handling down to the millimeter. Any deviation in airspeed, altitude, or heading can snap the boom connection and potentially send both aircraft plummeting out of control. During all of this, the boom operator has to compensate for turbulence, aircraft movement, and the simple physics of connecting two objects traveling at hundreds of miles per hour. "Contact!" came the radio call as the boom locked into the lead pilot's receptacle with a metallic clunk. For the next 4 minutes, 4,000 pounds of JP-8 aviation fuel flowed from the KC-707 into his ROM, while both aircraft maintained perfect formation flight. Without this capability, Israeli F-15s would be limited to targets within 1,000 miles, excluding most of Yemen and allowing Iran to establish weapon supply routes beyond Israeli reach. The successful refueling meant no Iranian proxy anywhere in the Middle East could consider themselves safe. So, as the last F-15I disconnected from the final tanker, the strike package was committed. At 9:45 p.m., Yemen's coastline appeared on their infrared displays. The Hodeida port complex was still actively offloading Iranian weapons shipments, disguised as humanitarian aid, completely unaware that 50 precision-guided munitions were about to turn Iran's Red Sea logistics hub into a parking lot. At exactly 10 o'clock p.m., the target finally appeared on their screens. The massive Hodeida port complex spread across the Yemeni coastline in crystal-clear thermal imagery. Container cranes, storage warehouses, fuel tanks, and pier facilities covering nearly 2 square kilometers, making it Iran's most important weapons pipeline to the Houthis. The Lightning targeting pod mounted under each pilot's aircraft was working overtime, with the pod's gimbal rotating 360 degrees while maintaining target lock, even if they had to pull 6 Gs in a combat turn. Its thermal imaging easily cuts through smoke and darkness while the TV camera zooms in with 30 times magnification that can spot individual people from 12 miles away. Through the pod's optics, the lead pilot could see that they were definitely in the right place. Iranian weapons shipments are housed alongside legitimate humanitarian supplies in those warehouse complexes, while underground bunkers provide climate-controlled storage for the most sensitive military equipment. The massive fuel storage tanks next to the main pier contained enough diesel to keep the port running and enough to create a pretty big fireball when hit by a couple of 2,000-pound bombs. Almost every ballistic missile drone component and explosive device that had been used in Houthi attacks over the past 18 months had passed through these facilities. The Houthis had turned Yemen into Iran's forward ammunition depot, and this port was the front door. Intelligence indicated that over 70% of Iranian weapons shipments transited through Hodeida, and knocking this out will do more than hurt a little. Almost on cue, 2 Iranian container ships were moored at the main pier, their crews completely unaware that the long arm of the law was about 60 seconds away. Armed guards were visible near the warehouse complexes, Houthi fighters protecting what they thought was a supply depot safely beyond Israeli reach. They were about to discover otherwise. As the lead pilot got visual, he signaled the attack. As he pushed his F-15Y into a 30-degree dive toward the port, the Lightning pod's computer was updating target coordinates in real time, automatically compensating for wind, aircraft movements, and atmospheric conditions to ensure his JDAM would impact within 10 feet of the designated aim point. The first GBU-31 was already armed and ready. In 60 seconds, a 2,000-pound precision-guided munition would remind the Houthis why attacking Israeli airports was a bad idea. At 10:03 p.m., the lead pilot's first GBU-31 JDAM hit the Hodeida port's main container crane. The 2,000-pound warhead wasn't just a big bomb, it was a precision demolition tool designed to destroy hardened infrastructure. The weapon's hardened steel penetrator punches through 6 feet of reinforced concrete before the 945 pounds of trinitrotoluene explosive detonates inside the target. The massive crane, capable of lifting 40-ton containers, folded as the explosion shredded its main support structure. But this was just the opening act. Every 15 seconds, another JDAM found its target with mathematical precision, each impact carefully timed to maximize destruction while avoiding interference between weapons. The second strike targeted the port's fuel storage containers, 6 massive above-ground tanks containing tens of thousands of gallons of diesel fuel. The GBU-31's penetrator warhead design focused explosive energy directly into the tank walls, rupturing the fuel containment and igniting a fireball that rose 650 feet into the evening sky. Strikes 3 and 4 hit the main warehouse complex where Iranian weapons were stored. Each 2,000-pound warhead delivered the explosive equivalent of 945 pounds of TNT, more than enough to collapse reinforced concrete walls and detonate any ammunition stored inside. Secondary explosions began rippling through the facility as Iranian-supplied rockets and artillery shells cooked off. Down on the ground, Houthi personnel were finally realizing what was happening. Through his targeting pod, the lead pilot could see figures running between buildings, some pointing rifles skyward, others shouting into radios. But at 35,000 feet, the F-15R arms were well above the engagement envelope of small arms and the light anti-aircraft guns positioned around the port. Their surface-to-air missiles were positioned to protect Sana'a, not this remote facility they'd assumed was beyond Israeli reach. The systematic destruction continued, as strikes 5 through 8 targeted the pier structures themselves. Each JDAM was programmed with GPS coordinates that placed them at the junction points where pier supports met the main dock structure. Destroying these specific structural points collapsed entire sections of the pier, making it impossible to unload ships even if the cranes had survived. By 10:07 p.m., just 4 minutes after the first impact, the Hodeida port was effectively deleted off the map. The massive concrete structures designed to withstand Red Sea storms and ship impacts were reduced to rubble by weapons specifically engineered to defeat hardened targets. Even if the Houthis somehow managed to repair the damage, they no longer had the cranes, fuel storage, or pier infrastructure necessary to handle large-scale weapon shipments. But Iran's support network extended beyond just shipping weapons. They'd also provided the Houthis with industrial capacity to hide their weapons locally, and that infrastructure was next. At 10:22 p.m., with the Hodeida port burning behind them, 4 F-15s from the formation were lining up on a target that didn't look threatening from the air but was vital to take out: the Bajil concrete factory. To most people, attacking a concrete plant with precision-guided munitions would seem like dropping a nuke on an anthill. However, Israeli intelligence had identified this facility as one of the most important military targets in Yemen. The Houthis weren't using this place to make sidewalks. Iranian engineers had quietly modified the plant to produce ultra-high-strength concrete using specialized additives that created bunker walls capable of withstanding conventional bombing. Every underground command post, weapons storage facility, and tunnel complex the Houthis had built over the past 2 years relied on concrete from this factory. Taking it out meant eliminating their ability to protect future military installations from air attacks. Through their targeting pods, the pilots could see the facility's industrial complex spread across several acres. Multiple concrete mixing towers rose 130 feet into the air, connected by conveyor systems that transported raw materials between processing buildings. The plant's civilian workforce had evacuated when the port strikes began, but Houthi security forces remained on site in a vain attempt to protect their investment. The 130-foot tower collapsed into adjacent buildings, instantly eliminating the facility's primary production capability. Strikes 2 and 3 targeted the cement storage silos, massive containers holding hundreds of tons of raw materials. The explosions ruptured the silos' walls, creating dust clouds that mixed with fires from ignited equipment and turned the entire facility into a choking wasteland. The final strike eliminated the electrical substations that powered the facility's operations. Without electricity, any surviving equipment was useless, and repairs would require completely rebuilding the industrial infrastructure from scratch. The precision required to hit specific components within the complex while avoiding nearby civilian structures demonstrated the GBU-32's accuracy, which was within 16 feet even at maximum range. By 10:26 p.m., the Bajil concrete factory had been completely destroyed. With its specialized production capabilities permanently eliminated, the Houthis had lost their ability to construct new hardened facilities, forcing them to rely on existing bunkers that were now vulnerable to future Israeli strikes. More importantly, Iran's investment in their little pet project had been wiped out in less than 20 minutes. Bye for now.